Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudire Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanam Ridyantasto Badrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashtaprayesho Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. So today we are going to discuss from the third canto, 12th chapter. So I think last verse was from third canto, 9th chapter. So we are going to skip chapter 10, 11. I'm going to summarize still, but we'll move on to chapter number 12. And let me share my screen. So today will be 3, 12, 2. Okay, so that's, I hope everyone can see the screen. Okay, so let's start off with the Sanskrit. ससर्जाग्रे अन्धतमिश्रम् अथ तामिश्रम् आदिकृत महामोहं च मोहं च चाज्ञान वृत्तयः ससर्जाग्रे अन्धतमिश्रम् अथ तामिश्रम् आदिकृत महामोहं च मोहं च तमश्चाज्ञानवृत्तयः ससर्जाग्रे अन्धतमिश्रम् अथ तामिश्रम् आदिकृत महामोहं च मोहं च तमश्चाज्ञानवृत्तयः. Okay, I'd like to chant some other. Let's start.
Hare Krishna.
ससर्जाग्रे अन्धतमिश्रम्
Sasarjagre andatamisram
अथ तामिश्रम् आदिकृत
atha tamishram adikrit
महामोहं च मोहं च
mahamoham cha moham cha
तमश्चाज्ञानवृत्तयः.
tamaschagnana vrittaya. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes, is that Raghav?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Oh, Hare Krishna Raghav. So, Sasarjagre andatamishram
Sasarjage nidatamishram
atha tamishram adikrit
atha tamishram adikrit
mahamoham cha moham cha
mahamoham cha moham cha
tamaschagyana
tamaschagyana vrittaya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Anyone else would like to chant?
Prabhuji, can I chant?
Yeah, go ahead, Krishna. Sasarjagre andatamishram
Sasarjagre andatamishram
atha tamishram adikrit
atha tamishram adikrit
mahamoham cha moham cha
mahamoham cha moham cha
tamaschagyana vrittayah.
tamaschagnana vrittayah.
Thank you. Okay, one more person would like to chant? Okay. Okay, so let's discuss. Oh yeah, okay. Mangal Nitai chant? I think that is Krishna. Okay. So
I was going to try. Sorry.
okay, go ahead. Millie, yes.
Okay. Sasarjagre and
Okay. Do you want me to lead?
yes, I'll follow.
Sasarjagre andatamishram
Sasarjagre and tamishram
atha tamishram adikrit
atha tamishram adikrit
mahamoham cha moham cha
mahamoham cha moham cha
tamaschagyana vrittayah.
tamaschagyana vrittaya.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we are going to go a little bit, let me see if we can switch. Yeah, okay. Now if we can still see my screen. So yesterday what we discussed was Garbhodakshay Vishnu speaking to Brahmaji, and after Brahma has offered those beautiful prayers, then Garbhodakshay Vishnu replies back to Brahmaji, and the main points that we can remember from Garbhodakshaya, what he actually spoke is that how he said, like, because you are assigned to do the seva, the empowerment already comes with the seva, right? So that was the first point that we heard about Garbhodakshaya Vishnu replying. And then further he actually made the point, he said, further he actually made the point that, while you're doing your seva of creation, if you always perform tapa and vidya, right? If you are always absorbed. So while we are doing our service, if we are always focused on the Lord through devotional service, then we will be protected from falling into like false ego or deviation from the path. And then he actually made the point that while you're doing a seva, if you can see me everywhere, right? See everything in relationship to me, then you'll be free from illusion, right? And further he also revealed that if one actually does his seva without the influence of the modes of material nature, then he can actually attain his real swarupa, right? And so the verse that we discussed yesterday was the verse where it says Purtena tapasa. So that was verse 41. Purtena tapasa yagyer danera yoga samadhina radham nishrayasam pumsa mat pritis tattva vinmatam. Right, where it actually said that tattvavit, those who are knowers of the truth, those who are expert in spiritual wisdom, they say all these activities, what is that? Good work, penances, sacrifices, charity, mystic yoga, right, dhyana yoga, samadhi, all those will attain perfection only when they are actually done for the satisfaction of the Lord. Right? So these activities, while we are doing these activities, if we are connecting those activities to Krishna, then only can we attain the highest perfection. Otherwise, these activities could be, they are pious, but they are pious material activities. They have nothing to do as such with our spiritual advancement. Like they normally would not give a transformation of the heart. Right? That's the main thing. Now, the next verse, which is very nice, we'll just touch upon this verse and then we'll proceed to the next chapter, where Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is saying, Aham Atmanam Dhatah Preshta San Preyasam Api Ato Mayi Ratim Kurva Dehadir Yat Krite Priyaha. That he's actually saying, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is saying, I am the super soul in every individual. Right? So we know now how Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he expands into one more Vishnu, which is known as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And it is this Kshirodakshaya Vishnu who is a super soul in the heart of every living entity. Right? So he's saying, I am that super soul. I am the supreme director and I am the dearest to everyone. People are wrongly attached to the gross and subtle bodies, but they should be attached to me only. So Prabhupada actually, he explains this point that he says, for us, generally we have a fear. And finally, the fear is why? That we want nothing to happen to us. Right? Now, when we say us, we are protective of our body, but finally, there is attachment to the body because the soul is there. I mean, if the soul leaves the body, then, the soul does not care for this body. It's like it's already moving on to another body. So, Prabhupada one way explains that our real attachment is actually to the soul. Because that's who we are, right? Even the manifestation of fear in this world is because we want to protect ourselves, right? We want to have the body so that the soul can do certain activities, right? So our real attachment is the soul. Our dearest is the soul, but the soul is actually connected to the super soul. And the soul cannot function in this material world without the direction of the super soul. It is the super soul who acts upon the three modes and actually one way controls every living entity. So based on this point, yes, the soul is dearest to all of us, but for the soul, the dearest is actually the super soul. And hence, based on that, the Lord is saying that I am the dearest to everyone. People have forgotten this because they are attached to a gross and subtle body. They don't realize, but Krishna is saying, I myself is the dearest object for everyone. Therefore, everyone should be attached only to me. Right? Atomai ratim kurvyat dehadir yat krite priya. Right? It should be just one attachment to Krishna. So this is the last verse that Garbhodakshaya Vishnu speaks. And then we see in the next chapter where Vidura, so this whole thing is a conversation between Vidura and Maitreya, right? So Vidura asked this question where he actually says, okay, I have heard what you said. You talked about how Brahma got this knowledge and he performed meditation, he got darshan of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he composed all his prayers, and then Garbhodaksha Vishnu has given all these wisdom to him. And then after this, but why was Brahma actually doing all this? Because his purpose is actually to create, right? He's woken up in the morning, he does not know what to do, but now he has the wisdom to actually do the task of creation. So Vidura actually asked, he says, Maitreya Rishi, so now can you tell me that how did Brahma create? All right. And then from this whole chapter and the next whole chapter, it's quite a technical chapter, but it is basically talking about Brahma's creation in this world. So I'm going to touch upon these two chapters, and then we'll come to today's verse. Right? So in this chapter number 10, which is called the divisions of the creation, in response to Vidura's question, Maitreya Rishi starts to speak, and he says, after Garbhodaksha Vishnu spoke to Brahmaji, then Brahmaji again performed austerities for 100 years. 100 celestial years. So before he performed austerity, now after the Lord spoke, again he said, okay, I'm going to start my seva of creation. Let me actually again meditate on what I have heard, what blessings I have received from Garbhodaksha Vishnu. He performs. And then it is said that when he was, after he done his austerity, he actually saw that how, because he is born on top of a lotus, right? So he saw the lotus itself and the water was actually really trembling. It was like moving from, violently moving, like moving, So, and then because Brahma had got this transcendental knowledge, he had performed so much austerity, Krishna actually spoke to Brahma from within and gave him direction what he should do, right? Then he actually, he drank the wind and the water. It was like heavy wind because of which the lotus was moving, and water was all turbulent. So that which was covering the stem of the lotus, that water Brahmaji drank. And the wind, he actually just sucked everything. So then the lotus became steady, right? So there's Garbhodaksha Vishnu below, there's a lotus stem from there, and on top of that is lotus, and Brahma is on top, right? Now it's all stable. So Brahma first says, okay, now my task of creation starts. Now, along the stem of the lotus, Brahma creates 14 planetary systems. So, along the stem, right? So, now there are like 14 planetary systems. It starts with Brahmalok, Satyalok, Janalok, Tapolok, Maharlok, Swargalok, Bhurlok, Bhuvarlok, Bhurlok, then the 7 lower planetary systems. So, we are right in the middle. Now, Earth is not the only planet in our system. It is one planet in this planetary system. So in this way, there are like 14. When you say Swargalok, it is a collection of different planets. And below us, there's Atala, Vitala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. We hear this word Patalok. So that is one of the 14 planetary systems. So Brahma first starts by creating these planetary systems, because like living entities, we need a place to stay, right? So he creates all these planetary systems. So first is the task of creating 14 planetary systems. Then after that, it's actually said, once the creation is there, yes, there's the aspect of maintenance, but there's also the aspect of destruction. The nature of the material world is that anything created is, by the influence of time, going to get destroyed. Our body, we have limited lifespan here. It's created at some point. We come into existence. Yeah, we are maintaining it. At some point, the body is just going to merge back into the elements of earth, water, fire, etc. Right? So there are destruction. Destruction is just a symptom of this material existence, material world. So after Brahma is created, then Maitreya Rishi describes that because destruction is a part of creation, let me talk of 3 kinds of destruction. And he says, one is the destruction just of our body, right? We have limited time here. It could be like, starting from as soon as we take birth, from that time, one way we are actually dying. And that could be like after 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, whatever, right? So that destruction is this destruction. That's one kind of destruction. Second is Brahma at the end of his day, right? So Brahma has 12 hours in his day, 12 hours night. At the end of 12 hours of Brahmaji, there is one kind of destruction where we talked of 14 planetary systems, but from the bottom all the way up to the including Swargalok, all that is actually covered with water. So there's partial destruction every night of Brahma. And hence in the morning, he has to again come and, after he's awakened, he forgets what he has to do. Again, he meditates. Every morning, Brahma actually does this. And then Krishna gives him the intelligence to speak, to create, and again he does the task of creation. Imagine every day morning if you have to get up and again recreate, our house and everything. Brahma does that every day, right? So that is second kind of destruction. And third is when Brahma dies. So Brahma lives for 100 years. At the end of Brahma's life, then that is complete destruction. That means all this entire 14 planetary system, which is situated within one entire universal shell, right? The golden egg, if you remember we had talked about before, that entire thing merges back into the body of Karandakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is lying and he's breathing, right? And just from his breath, from the pores of his body, all universes are coming into existence. Each universe consists of one Brahma, 14 planetary systems. At the end of Brahma's life, it is the breath, Mahavishnu breath out, now he's breathing back in. So that duration is the life of Brahma, right? So that is complete annihilation. So these three kinds of annihilations are described. And then further, as I said, material energy means destruction, hence destruction is mentioned. But then further he actually talks of what are different types of creations, and then he says that how the elements are created in small earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then he talks about how our senses, right? So because we have earth, water, fire, air, ether, we have senses like smell, touch, nose, smell, nose, right? So that's one. Then taste, tongue, right? Then sound, ears, right? So in that way, all those elements, everything is actually created. And then Brahma actually says, okay, now all these elements are created. Now I need to create 8.4 million species of life, right? So those are the different species of life, and Brahma actually creates them, right? So here it is described. It's very interesting how the division is actually described. So it talks of 4 kinds of living entities. The first it talks of is the plants, right? Plants are also living entities. And how is the classification made? It's very interesting. They classify based on how the living entities get nourished, right? So how do the plants get nourished? Well, from their roots, right? So it is from down, they are actually absorbing from the soil water, minerals, and then they are getting nourished. So that's one. Now, other kind of living entities are nourished horizontally. Who are these? These are the four-legged, like a lion, cow. They are eating, and the digestion is horizontal, right? So that's the second type of. The third is us, living entities. How does our digestion take place? It is we eat from top, and then it is again vertical, but it's from top to bottom, right? And then the last class he actually talks about is the demigods, right? So our nourishment is downward nourishment, plants nourishment is upward nourishment, animals nourishment is horizontal nourishment, and then there are the demigods as a fourth category. And in demigods also he talks of different kinds of demigods. So all these living entities Brahma actually creates, right? Now, why is he creating 14 planetary systems, 8.4 million species of life, including plants and all these entities? Because living entities from the previous day of Brahma, we still have those material desires. And because every living entity is individual with a particular karma, with a particular desire, hence Brahma, to facilitate their desires and to give them an appropriate body, he's actually creating all this. So whoever the living entities, based on his karma and based on his desires, has a place to go. If someone has a lot of piety, he may be assigned in Swargalok, but since he has a desires to maybe enjoy, maybe lusty, he may go to Swargalok because of pious activity, but even in Swargalok, he may have lust and he may have like apsaras, etc., etc. So everyone, whatever is our desire and karma, we are assigned to one of these planetary systems and a particular kind of body, right? So all that is Brahma's doing, right? And then, so that's chapter 10. Chapter 11 basically talks of calculation of time from the atom. It is such a scientific chapter. Like scientists are like, how many decades they have spent to actually find out the smallest unit of existence, and they come to, okay, electrons are the smallest. Bhagavatam actually gives us that information. And then what is the smallest unit of time? Right, we say seconds, and maybe you can say milliseconds. But what is the smallest unit of time? All that is given in the chapter 11. Very scientific chapter. So it actually says, let's start off by the smallest particle and the largest particle. Right? So it says Paramanu and Parama Mahan. Paramanu means the smallest, the ultimate smallest particle. Bhagavatam describes, that is Paramanu. Right? Which cannot be divided further. That is the smallest. And Bhagavatam is giving that information. And then Parama Mahan, which is the totality of all material elements together. That is Parama Mahan. That is the whole one way, the Mahat Tattva, the sum total of everything. That is the largest. Now, based on matter, time is defined. Right? So it actually says, okay, so we have the smallest atom, smallest particle, Paramanu. And then it is said, when this Paramanu, time covered by the sun in passing over one Paramanu. So imagine like the sun is moving, right? So the time it takes for the sun to move over one Paramanu, one small particle, that is the smallest unit of time, right? And yeah, so that's the smallest unit of time. And then that is called Paramanu. Yeah. So yeah, Paramanu. Yeah, so that's also called Paramanu. And then based on that smallest unit of time, then it says, okay, that is Paramanu. Then Anu, 2 Paramanus is the time taken to move over 2 of these smallest particles. And that way it goes higher and higher, and you have time, like how we have hours, minutes, seconds. Here you have Paramanu, Anus, Trasa, Renus, Trutis, Vedas, Lava, like we hear Lava Matra, Sadhu Sangha, Lava, that is there here. Then Nimesha, they say time to blink our eyes, right? That is one Nimesha. Then Shana, Kasta, Laghu, Danda, right? So that's Danda. And then Praharas. Then it goes further to a fortnight, right? 15 days and nights. So that's also defined. Then 2 fortnights, that's a month. Then 2 months. Then 6 months. Then 2 ayanas, that is 1 year. And so, like, if you see that division of time, division of elements, it's all there here in Bhagavatam. And why is it described here in Bhagavatam? To make the point that Brahma did all this at start of creation. So, hence our main, when our approach to Bhagavatam is, like, we don't need to, as such, like, invent the basics. The fundamentals, they're all there in the Bhagavatam. Instead of, like, spending years and decades to find out, okay, what is the smallest thing? The information is right here. Right? Even if someone has discovered, like, let's say, electron, and whole life is working on, like, this wave particle theory and all those things. But if he has not transformed his consciousness even a little bit in his whole lifetime, what is the use? People study, like Prabhupada used to make the point that people, like, they do a PhD on a blade of grass. But do we actually think that who is behind the whole creation of this blade of grass? You can study a blade of grass, but can you in your lab manufacture a blade of grass? Not like a plastic, a living, conscious blade of grass. No. So we have to, like, so Prabhupada always makes the point that yes, we are not against science, but science which is actually trying to prove that there is no God. That is what we are against, right? And that's what the current science, it tries to cover God and say, no, we can figure out everything, right? So very scientific chapter. And then further it also talks of like, okay, we are talking of time, let's go further. Let's talk of time of one Kali Yuga. Then let's talk of time of Dwapar Yuga, then Treta Yuga, then Satya Yuga. How many years is that? So one Satya Yuga is actually 1,728,000 years, right? And then what is the sum total of all these four? It is 4.32 million years, right? Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga together 4.32 million years, right? And then it talks of Brahma. What is his lifespan? 100 years. What does that 100 years actually mean? So it's like 311 trillion years is the lifespan of Brahma, right? So anyway, so that's all described. So time, universe, particles, all that is described. So we are almost at the end, but quickly I'll mention today's verse. So let me just switch. So that's today's verse. So after that, so that's all in chapter 10, chapter 11. Now in chapter number 12, here, then Brahma actually starts to create. Okay, I've created all these living entities. Anyway, it's not so chronological, but he says like before all these living entities are created, I need to create ignorance. I mean, it's like one way bewildering that why would Brahma create ignorance? Because all of us have come to this material world to actually enjoy separate from Krishna. And Brahma knows that his function is to give every living entity an opportunity to try to enjoy separate from Krishna and then get frustrated and then realize that, oh, this is not what I want, let me turn back to Krishna. Right? So Brahma knows the real purpose of creation. Why is this entire creation? Hence he creates this ignorance for living entities to get an opportunity to actually enjoy separate from Krishna. Right? So what is this verse? Today's verse is says Sasarja. Sasarja starts with Sasarja means he created. Agre, at first. So actually this is before all the living entities are created. He says at first he created what? So this verse goes from one way bottom to bottom to top, but we'll start off from the other way around. The first element that Brahma actually creates is Tamaha. Right? So if you see in the last line it says Tamaha. Right? So what is Tamaha? Tamaha is the first thing. So we all have a Swarup, right? What is our spiritual identity? But that forgetfulness of that spiritual identity, that is the first ignorance. Darkness in self-knowledge, Prabhupada says. Self-knowledge is understanding who we are in our Swarup. Tamaha, the first ignorance that Brahma created is this darkness. The forgetfulness of our Swarupa. Second, we are going back from bottom to verse 2, so third line, Moham. Moham actually means that once our Swarup is forgotten, then because we are conscious living entities, we actually accept a body as, oh, this is who I am. Right? We forget that we are servant of Krishna. Immediately we are like, okay, if that identity is forgotten, but I need an identity. And immediately you're like, okay, I am Indian, I am this body, I am so and so, right? So that is the second kind of ignorance that Brahma created. That immediately when you forget Asaru, then we actually are moha, right? We are subjected to this second kind of ignorance where we start identifying a false identity, false ego. Then third is Mahamoha. So third line, first word, Mahamoha. What is Mahamoha? So yes, as soon as we identify with the body, then what happens? Then you say, okay, this is who I am. Then this house is mine. This property is mine. This is mine. So all the concept of mind, the possessiveness of so many objects, that is Mahamoha. Further, we are going ahead, line number 2. Atha Tamishram. Right? Tamishram means that once we have all these objects, because the nature of material world is what? Destruction. So we have an object, but then at certain point we are going to lose that object. Right? So then what happens? Anger upon frustration. We try to hold on to material things. No, I will keep it. I'll keep it forever. But we cannot. And things start falling apart. Then we have to fix it. Then we have to So there's anger and there's frustration. That is Tamishram. And then coming back to the first line, under Tamishram. Under Tameshram is what? Is a final kind of illusion where it is ignorance, unconscious state brought about by anger. So this is basically the sense of death. Right? So this is the 5 levels of ignorance, starting with forgetfulness of a real self, second, identifying with some false self, then third, identifying with the things around us, possessiveness, fourth is the frustration, anger, and the fifth is death. So these are the 5 kinds of ignorance that Brahma created. Why? Because we wanted to be in ignorance. We don't want to be with Krishna. Right? I've given this example before. I'll end with this, I know, over time. That a firefly, Jiva Goswami gives this example. Right? A firefly, because in the sun, the firefly has no authority. Like, no one will look at the firefly and like in the sun because sun is so bright. But there's a firefly actually says, no, I am so great. Not realizing that even that tiny light is coming from the sun. I am so great. Then what will do? The firefly chooses to come into darkness. And as soon as in darkness, then the firefly, people say, oh yeah, see firefly, a light is coming. You know. So similarly, we wanted to be away from Krishna, away from bright, away from sun. And we said, okay, let me come to darkness. And then that darkness Brahma created in these 5 forms. Okay, I'll stop here. So basically we concluded Garbhodakshaya Vishnu's conversation with Brahma. Then we came to Vidura's question to Maitreya. Please tell me, okay, Brahma got all this knowledge. How did he create? We talked about how he was on lotus, how he stabilized the lotus. He created 14 planetary systems. And then we talked about the 3 kinds of destruction. And then we came to the different kinds of living entities, right? And then we talked of time, smallest unit, largest unit of time, Brahma's lifespan, and then coming to today's verse of the 5 kinds of ignorance that Brahma created. Okay, I'll stop here. Sorry, I'm over time today. Any quick questions? Let's stop. Yes, Simon.
Hare Krishna. Just 2 quick questions. So the first question is, so you mentioned how the sum total of all the yugas is 4.32 million years. Does that mean that's the end of partial destruction, or?
No, so one Divya Yuga is 4 yugas, right? Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga. So 1,000 of these Divya Yugas is 1 day of Brahma.
Oh,
So after that 1 day of Brahma, then there's partial destruction.
okay, got it.
So immediately after Kali Yuga, then Satyug begins. And unless it is the 1,000th one, then the cycle keeps going on.
Okay, got it. And then my second question is, when you refer to tamaha, is that related to the 3 modes of material natures, tamas, or is that different?
I mean, existence in the material world means ignorance.
Mm.
Because as soon as like we are come to this material world, it is a feature of ignorance. So tamaha in the mode is also tamaha, but actually in the aspect of creation, it is this tamaha, that mode of ignorance, which is the main predominating mode in the cycle of creation. And that tamaha is one way related to us forgetting our Swarupa. So one way is related because the whole material world is actually an production of false ego. So, but yeah. Yeah. So tamaha is in play for sure, because when we talk of creation also, it is actually when the entire sum total of all material elements is there. I mean, it's going a little technical, but that sum total of everything is there, that is pradhan. But it's only when the 3 modes become active, then you get all the different elements. So it is, yes, one way it is that tamaha. Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you all so much. So we'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you all so much for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
so much for summarizing the entire chapter. That's not an easy thing, and especially going on to the technical ones you touched upon, all how Brahma calculated the time and mathematics was all there in form of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can I
Okay.
ask one quick question, Prabhu?
Yes,
There's a little
yes.
confusion in my mind.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, we were saying like our attachment is actually for the soul, and the soul is doing everything at the direction of the super soul, and yet we, make mistakes, we divert, we do other random things, knowing internally we know that what is right and wrong. What is causing all that? Like, how does that happen? Is that what we talked about in this verse, that the first condition is forgetfulness? Is that how it is?
So,
Like, how does the
yes.
soul forget then?
Yeah, so root cause of our existence in this material world is forgetfulness, and therefore Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first instruction to Sanatan Goswami is what? Jivera Swarup hoy Krishnera Nityadas. He starts off with this. See, Bhagavad Gita starts off with, okay, we are spirit soul, but Mahaprabhu started to Sanatan Goswami understand our Swarup. Jivera Swarup is Krishnera Nityadas. We are connected to Krishna, and our position is servant of Krishna. So starting with that. So that is the root cause of all the other kinds of ignorance. Now, to your question, like, okay, if we know still we are one way forced to do things which are not in line with our spiritual self, is that?
Yeah.
And that's like how in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he says, lust only, O Arjuna, right? It is our desire to enjoy separate from Krishna, which is our greatest sinful enemy of this world. So why is this there? Because as spirit soul, our nature is Satchit Ananda. Now that Ananda is actually in relationship with Krishna. But since we have turned away from Krishna, we are looking for Ananda where? In this material world. And that Ananda reflected falsely in this material world is nothing but lust. So, Atmendriya Priti Vancha Tare Bale Kam. Krishnendriya Priti Vancha Tale Premanam. So he says like, Atmendriya, when we want to satisfy our own senses, that is lust. When we want to satisfy the senses of Krishna, that is love. So desire to enjoy is there. But do we want to enjoy separately from Krishna, or we want to enjoy by serving the senses of Krishna? So that's the difference between lust and love. But it's just because we have forgotten our relationship with Krishna, we look for happiness here, and that is that lust which Krishna says in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.